talking about today, we're actually talking about confusing fighting game language. And by that, I mean the language of understanding notation. Notation is one of the things that most fighting game players will want to learn when it comes to learning combos, when it comes to learning moves, and kind of just being on the same page as everyone else and using the same language as everyone else, right? The hardest part about notation is that so many games use different notations, right? Some games use like a 1, 2, 3, 4 notation for 4 buttons. Some games use A, B, C, D for 4 different buttons. Some games use number pad notation for movement, 1 through 9, 5 being neutral. And some games use down, up, crouching, jump for their normals instead, right? And the reason why I'm talking about this today is actually because we are on a brand new game. The game's been out about 2 weeks already, maybe 3 weeks now. DNF Duel. It's a really fun game. It's a really cool game. It's technically a 6-button fighting game. You have your A, your B, your S, your MS, your G, and your AS, right? G is guard, AS is awakening skill, MS is magic skill. S is skill, A is your light attack, and B is your heavy attack, right? This is what you're going to find in game. So these are the things that normally people would call them. Now, the very strange thing is that the community is actually fighting within itself about which notation to use. We're on a website known as Dustloop. Dustloop is a resource for learning fighting games. There's a good few fighting games in here. There's Dragon Ball FighterZ, Guilty Gear Strive, DNF Duel, BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle, a bunch of games, right? BlazBlue Central Fiction. There's so many fighting games that have a resource like this, right? KI has ki.info.net. Soul Calibur has 8-Way Run, right? But when we scroll through here, let's just click on a character. We'll click on my boy of choice, the holy man himself, Crusader, because I actually know his moves well enough to know what's going on when I look at these moves. Now, we're going to see at the very beginning, all of this makes sense, right? 5A, 5AA, which means neutral, 5B, 2A, 2B, JA. Oh, whoa, what is JA? JA means jump. In a lot of games, J will always mean jump and C will mean crouch. But in other games, 2 will mean crouch, not C, right? Some games will have like C, small C, A, right? Or small C, MK, medium kick, right? They don't use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for light, medium, heavy punch and light, medium, heavy kick. Let's just keep it that way to keep it simple, right? Throw, guard, cancel, and then 5S, 2S, 6S, 4S, and then 5M. This is where things get tricky. 5M, 2M, 6M, 4M, J4M, JM, and AS. Now, if you look at the actual number of buttons in the game, there's only 4. Only 4 attack buttons, not including your awakening skill. Right? The other 2 buttons in the game are awakening skill and guard. AS and G. Things that are going to be perpetually the same. No one's really going to want to think to change those things. Usually those things don't usually get notarized in combos, right? Like you don't use G in combos in this game, and a lot of games you don't end up using G in combos. So some of you can say, oh, forward and guard to roll. I'm going to say, oh, just use super. And no one's really going to say awakening skill or AS. Usually they'll just say, oh, use super, right? But the debacle comes in where we're at a point where certain people want to use a more standardized notation for the combos in this game. Not being A, B, S, MS, they want to use A, B, C, D. Something along the lines of a game like King of Fighters, right? King of Fighters has A, B, C, D, and it's always been that way. That's how Neo Geo games have always been. It's very common, right? But when we look at the Dustloop, it shows us that for these notations, they want people to use S and MS or S and M, right? And I could see how it's very confusing because when you look at other games, some games have LMH where M is medium. So using M without the S can be confusing from people coming from another game as a background, right? My stance on it is each game has its own language. Sure, coming from multiple games and having to swap around a bunch, learning the notation will be kind of weird at first, but once you get the hang of it, you get used to any game's notation, right? Soul Calibur is my main game, or was my main game for a really long time. And in Soul Calibur, we only have 3 attack buttons and guard. So our buttons are A, B, K, and G. We don't say A, B, C, right? K is kick, and it's always been kick. So we've never said A, B, C, D for guard, or A, B, C, G. We've never done that. And I'm a firm believer that it's the same way. So we should probably do the same thing with this game. A, B, S, and MS. I do think M is a little confusing. I know that M is supposed to stand for magic, but these are actually called MP skills. So MS for MP skills or magic skills, magic point. That's what MS stands for. Coming from another fighting game, you don't always want to try to relate one fighting game to another. And the reason why is because that is nice for uniformity, but it's very bad for individuality. Each game has a different notation system because it has worked or been proven to be good in that specific instance, but not every other, right? Games like Tekken and Mortal Kombat use very similar input systems. Forward 4, meaning forward right kick in Tekken. Forward 4, meaning forward back kick in Mortal Kombat. And you're like, whoa, did you say forward back kick? Yes. Because it is limb-based, but because it's a 2D fighter, those limbs can be swapped on a wing. Doesn't matter because it's just for animation purposes. But with Tekken, that left foot or right foot will always be the same button, right? If I press 1 on player 1 side, it will be my left arm. And if I press 1 on player 2 side, it will still be my left arm. It will just look backwards. Here's my left arm, and if you spin me around, it's still my left arm. We're coming from the opposite direction, right? These games have already found their strides and their notations, and I think that that's a good thing. I think that each game having a little bit of individuality, just as they always have been. Fighting games are very unique, right? They may have similar systems, they may have things that cross over, like neutral, spacing, fundamentals, footies, mix-ups, kick throws. Like there may be things that cross over, but fighting games, in a sense, have always had a level of individuality, and that's why even when you look at games like shooting games, they have different controls. Not every shooting game has the melee button on a controller set to this, set to the right stick. Some games have it set to circle. I don't think that's normal, but hey, it's what some games do because every game is afforded individuality, but it can get very confusing to those who are beginning in the genre. I do think that the best thing to do is familiarize yourself with each system, right? Each system is in the buttons on your controller, whether it be a hitbox, an arcade stick, a keyboard, a controller like a regular PS4 or Xbox controller. Familiarize yourself with those buttons, and then familiarize yourself with the notation that is in the resource that you learned the game from. Whether that be ABCD or ABSMS. And the reason why I say that is because this is going to be the most uniform way to learn DNF Duel. Through the resource here on the website where people have already started to find frame data, start up active frames, recovery frames, block punishment, things like that, interval frames. This is where they're going to want you to look. Oh, they don't have the hitbox for this move yet. Damn, that sucks. This is probably where most people are going to look to find their frame data and even their moves for every single character in the game. And there's resources like this for every game. And so that's why I truly believe that the best way to figure out which notation to use is just by using the old perennial one that came up first. If we look at a game like Guilty Gear, it's a 5-button game. But never have we ever in the history of Guilty Gear tried to change P, K, S, H, D to A, B, C, D, E. We've never ever thought of doing that, as far as I know. For the longest that I've seen people play Guilty Gear and talk about Guilty Gear, I've never seen anyone try to change the way that the system works. A game like Dragon Ball FighterZ, LMHS, S being the special or unique attack. They've never tried to change Dragon Ball to A, B, C, D. Though it could work, Dustloop, and the in-game resource of actually looking through the control schemes shows light attack, medium attack, heavy attack, special attack. Sometimes the right answer is right in front of your face. It can be a little confusing when people are using different languages in front of you, but the reason why that language might be different is because you came from a different game where you're used to a different form of notation, whether that be numpad notation, ABCD notation, the actual button notation, or numpad, or limb notation is what I'll call it for Mortal Kombat and Tekken. Hopefully this video was a little insightful, and it's a little bit of an opinion piece. I really do believe that the best way to go about learning the notation of a game is by using the one inside of the resource or inside of the game. That's usually the best way to do it. And if you like the video, leave a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to get some of those YouTube bucks. We actually currently aren't monetized at all. Too small of a channel. Help your boy out. And if you want to help out even more, come by to this Twitch streams where we do this live before we upload them to YouTube. I'm a real lazy content creator. Editing is not in my nature. Anyways, this has been Beanie Thuggish for the YouTubes, signing out and saying peace.